board set out, so if I want to show something visually, I can. Even though it's not the correct board, I've jerry-rigged another board of another game that uses the Lumen engine. So, yay! We've got that working out. Okay, we're going to be looking at Apocalypse Train. So let's go over and have a look-see and do this. So yeah, this is a Apocalypse Train. It is a Lumen-based TTRPG that relies heavily on mechs and fast-paced combat. And we're just going to scroll around it. I'm not going to read things word for word unless I really have to describe something. But we'll go through each section and kind of I'll give a brief description, an example, and go through. So again, there's an example of the frames that you'll be piloting. I believe this is just a medium because it's got a Gatling cannon. But again, Apocalypse Train by Illuminated by Lumen. So you're going to go tables of contents, enemies. I'll probably be stopping once we hit the enemies. So the background to the game is an event has happened that's caused the world itself to be infected, or basically due to pandemics, natural disasters, economic, political. Basically, the world is fucked. The world might as well just be a wasteland now, which was then picked up by our enemies, the Republic, which is a heavily armed militaristic faction that basically tried to crack down and capitalize on the situations, and a lot of ground warfare, a lot of people dying, eventually led to the development of our frames, which are our exoskeletons, and our mechs, and also gave birth to the Collective, which are our faction that is opposed to the Republic. So think of us as more freedom fighters, and think of yourselves as more freedom fighters and guerrilla fighters. Which I'm fine with, the minimalistic as this is, and you can compare it to Armored Core, which is very mercenary and corporation based. This is very bot standard. There's only two factions, and it basically is two factions battling it out. I could, and people should, and also people also could. It kind of changed to be more corporate factions, to have more factions, have more corporations. Maybe the Republic split up, split up into different corporations, or maybe they're developing these corporations as things are happening. Maybe certain mech factories are vying for independence because of what they can manufacture. That's an idea that you can go with. So, say a lot of the old factories that are being used to make mechs, there's a lot of power in whoever can keep them running, keep them operational. Maybe a separate faction comes on purely from that ability, because they can produce the mechs to defend themselves if needed, and also enforce and retaliate. So you could be like that. You could be working for one of these factories. You could be a pilot for one of the mechs made by these factories, in the factory's owner's interest or in the corporation's interest, and you could build things off from there. So while I will follow these to a certain point, especially for when doing one shots, I kind of branch off into my own thing and kind of just homebrew. So I'll be working on stuff from I'll be making shit up as I go along and kind of working on stuff like that. But again, we have the aces, which are the pilots. You are the ace. You excelled in every capability, and you proved that you can pilot a mech. Good job. You now have a mech. Yay! Which brings us to core mechanics. So the core mechanics of this is, you can play at least two players, which is yay. One GM, one pilot. I fucking love this, because it means even if I only ever have one player, I have one player. They can play. I'm not having to reschedule and feel like everything's been ruined, which it does sometimes feel like the day's been ruined when no one shows up or one or two people can't show up, and it puts a dent in everyone's day, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable of playing as other characters or playing as their friends' characters, and a lot of people don't feel like having their characters being played by the GM, in the sense of, if something bad happens, it's the GM's fault that your character died if you're not there. And again, real life sucks and has to take you away from the game. But But yeah, moving on. So again, we have our pilots. There's only 3 attributes in the game, which is drive, which is basically the body, speed, which is basically the mind, and control, which is basically the spirit. Split it up 3 ways. You only have these 3 attributes. You only roll for these 3 attributes. There's no perception. There's no finger. If basically you categorize. Excuse me. So basically, say you want to brute force something, you can just roll drive. If you need to run or navigate or sprint or climb, use speed. If you need to think, if it's something that's very complex and you need to think it out, or it's a lot more finesse, or say you've got a plan in mind but you're not sure whether or not you have the finesse for it, I would say roll control, roll speed, deduct some dice. So roll half control, half speed to do that kind of thing. But it's basically a case of you put your attributes into these. So say you have 3 drive, 2 speed, 1 control. If you wanted to roll for a drive, you would roll 3d6 and you would keep the highest. And it's kind of like that. So instead of like it being points based, it's dice based. So you're putting dice into your attributes that you will have to roll for whenever you roll for them skills. It explains here that everyday character has 3 attributes, which are these 3. They can be no lower than 1, no higher than 3. So when you get a certain amount of points, you can't go higher than 3. And you can go no lower than 1. So meaning you have to at least put 1 point into 1, but you can kind of do it things in different ways. So you could go 3, 2, 1, or 2, 2, 2, and like that. So you could be very well balanced if you wanted to. Honestly, I think that should be no higher than 4, no lower than 1. So you could go 4, 4, 1, 1. Yep, attributes and attack rolls. You basically describe your approach, describe what action you're taking. The GM decides which one of these 3 categories it revolves around, and you'd roll accordingly. And it's always the same. The fail state is always the same. Think of it as rolling in Warhammer 40k, and like rolling to like fire or something that's on a 3+. So a 3+ is, so basically you have the case of if you roll a 1 and a 2, you fail and something happens. You roll a 3 and a 4, you've succeeded, but something's going to happen. And 5 and a 6, you succeed and there are no consequences to what you've done. So an example of this would be you're taking a shot at someone. You roll a 3. You've hit them. They've hit you back. So you've traded. Maybe you've hit harder. So it's a positive trade. So it isn't that bad. But it's still a case of you've hit but there's a consequence. So if they roll more dice, this changes. So you keep the highest. So you've got more chances of rolling a 5 and a 6 if you roll more dice. So if we roll 3 dice, which I'll do now as an example. Oop. We've got a 5 and a 6. Sorry. So yeah, we rolled a 5 and a 6. That's from the powers of 3 dice. Say we wanted to roll, we could only roll 2 dice. We still got lucky, we still rolled a 5. But say we only can roll 1 dice. But we still got lucky. Digital dice gods are in our favor. So it rolls like that, which is really nice. And as we get further on, we'll realize that our weapons are also kind of the same category. So when recruiting or creating your character, you have 6 attributes with 1 on 3 in each. So basically, you've got 6 points to put in these 3 skills. So assign them accordingly. You choose a division that determines your frames. We'll go through divisions at some point, and then you choose a frame. So divisions are kind of subsections of your teams. So each team might be a separate division, or it might be a mix of divisions. But each division tackles the things in a different way. And might even have, you could even then split your same team, if they are in different divisions, into different roles of the objectives. Maybe they enter from a different area. Maybe they come in around later. Maybe they are the backup. Or maybe they even have a different mission entirely because they're a different division. Maybe say someone from the Sword, who are trained especially for reconnaissance and eliminating and posing a threat, moves forward, eliminates an area, so people can come in and reclaim stuff, or people can hold that territory. Or say a arrow is safely guiding the people who are moving to the area that the Sword has cleared out, to ensure that nothing happens to that transport. And say that the transport arrives at the location that the Sword has cleared out, but enemy forces are arriving, a shield would be there to protect and ensure that nothing happens. But you could just trade it off as to say, one player starts the mission clearing an area. You run that combat scenario for that one player, or 2 players if there's 2 swords. So 2 swords are clearing out in an area, and they've managed to clear it out completely. That's their mission accomplished. Say we have a 1 arrow player who is going to guide the escort. He has less forces to deal with, because a lot of them might have just been retaliating to the Sword. So the arrow might have just spent the time assisting the cargo and picking off stragglers. And that's the arrow's mission. And then say we've got the shield mission. Say we have another 2 more shield players. Say enemy reinforcements are going to just burn everything to the ground and do scorched earth. These 2 shield players are got to prevent that. Or say you just have everyone out on the battlefield, but they're entering from different points. Say the arrow is going to enter first, and their job is to take out a comms relay. The arrow does that first. It is now in a situation where they're in a dicey situation where they can take a lot of damage. Next round, swords appear. Reinforcements. Swords come in, take a lot of the enemy forces out. But then the next round after that, enemy forces are going to arrive. That's when the shields arrive. You've now got to escape that area. The shields will provide cover. So you could run it like that. So yes, a player's not going to have a turn each round or stuff like that. You could interject them in different ways, I believe. So again, they fit different roles in accordance to the name. So now we're going to have a look at some of the frames you can play. And they fit into different categories, and they also trade their own resources. So frames in the settings, you're just piloting your mech. Your capabilities, a light frame is usually 10 to 13 feet tall, medium frame 14 to 16, heavy frames about 20 feet tall. So you're not dealing with very tall mechs for the scenario. And obviously heavy, medium, light, you don't need to explain stuff like that. But then we've got the qualities. So we have Vigor, which is our pilot's endurance and ability to shield more sensitive parts of the vehicle. Vigor is basically your frame's health and is increased by your drive. So your drive will add points to your health pool and basically determine your maximum health. Tension is your morale and momentum in combat. Tension is basically a consumable resource that allows you to perform extra actions and also reroll actions. So if you want to do an extra action such as an extra attack or an extra move, or you want to reroll something you don't like, you would spend your frame's tension to do it. So mediums have a decent amount. Medium mechs have a decent amount of tension. The light mechs will have a lot more because they are more flexible and more maneuverable. and heavy frames will have next to 0 tension, aside from if, say, you put 3 points into you put 3 points into your speed. That's at least 3 points into your tension if your mech doesn't have any tension to begin with. And then you have ammo, and ammo is basically a consumable resource that you have systems and secondary weapons that utilize this ammo that you can then spend during the battle as an alternative to tension. So you have 2 consumable resources that you can use to determine how you attack or how you move. The difference with ammo is, I believe ammo always hits. If you're using a system that requires ammo, you are always doing damage. As with, if you're using tension to use a weapon attack, you are at least rolling based on that weapon's stats. So, and then you have armaments, which is basically your mech's primary weapons. Systems are secondary, and what you spend ammo to use. Integral systems are basically your mech's passives. And module systems, I believe, are also passives. I don't know. Module systems are basically like your mech's ultimate. So this is your main skill that you might only be able to use once per turn, or you might have like a really powerful passive for your mech. And traits obviously is dependent on your frames build. So it would be a case of, are you a light, are you a medium, are you a heavy? You have different traits based on that, and then you have your integral trait, which is basically, again, another passive. And now we're going to move on to looking at some stock models. So these are some stock builds of mechs, each one performing a primary role. And they go into the categories of the divisions. So we have our more sword focus, which are basically front forward fighters. You have your soldier, you have your recon, you have your vanguard. And basically they're like this. So using this as an example of how you would build, you have your vigor, your tension, and your ammo, which you then add your drive, speed, and control to. If it's a medium build, you put medium build trait, and then you have your trait passive. You have your integral systems, which is like a one-time consumable or a special trait. You have your main weapons, which is your main guns, which is your modular systems, and then you have your armaments, which use. You have your module systems that use ammo. And then you have your armaments, which use either your action on turn or your tension. And would go like that. So again, looking at here, you notice again, lights have more tension, a bit less ammo, and also less health. While mediums are kind of average among all of them, and heavies are health, ammo, and no tension. In regards to that. And again, they all fall into different things. So again, archers, who are more long range, and scouts, even the heavy mechs kind of fall into it, of being long range with an arc mortar or a target radar. So these fall more into the support. Oh, I've got a really bad case of heartburn. Sorry, there. And then you've got your shields, who are your defenders, or CC. So you might have stuff like support drones, medium build, an EMP, a repulsor shield. And then we go through like the traits. So again, if you're in a medium mech, you will be in a situation where your frames well balanced and speed and rolling drain. And we haven't got to drops yet, but we'll get to drops when we can. But when you have drops, which is basically an end of turn effect, you will always regain 1 vigor and 1 tension. So you're always going to heal by 1 and gain 1 tension at the end of every medium's turn. Light frames, you don't regain health, but you do regain more tension. And heavy builds will just regain health, they don't regain tension. And then we're just going through some of the systems, like they'll either help you do extra damage or help you avoid damage, or maybe give you a little effect that makes things easier in the long run. So, for example, the soldier has a triple feed Motus. Redundant build feeding mechanism with an advanced more cool, enabling more rapid and sustained conventional fire. The armaments have +1 harm if they have the burst or spin up tag or splash, and don't have energy. So long as they don't have energy, you're doing +1 harm with this trait. With burst, spin up, and splash, which are basically sub traits on weapons. Which we'll get to those traits in a bit further down the book. But again, that's like an average fighting mech. Then you have hairpin controls, which is the recon. Sensitive controls enable skill balance to make more risky situations. And deadly missteps. First time you roll a 4 on a turn. So if you roll a turn where you shoot at someone, but you rolled with consequence, so you rolled a 4 to shoot someone, you wouldn't get damaged by the consequences, and that's the first time each turn. So basically, it's a get out of jail, it's a get out of average roll card. Which again, if you were here earlier, if you're rolling a 3 and a 4, the result of that is always a success with consequence, which means a success, but that enemy's taking a shot at you. And then obviously we've got your heavies, which will have more defensive orientated traits, which is basically lead plating, an enormous metal shield that allows the frame to be used as cover. So if you're next to you, if your allies are next to this frame while this is out, they've got +1 armor. And armor is basically a trait where you take less damage. So I believe it's literally just take 1 point off, unless there's armor piercing. So if an enemy was going to shoot you to do 2 damage or 2 harm, you would only take 1 harm. Saying we've got those traits. Armaments. Again, armaments are your primary weapons. So your assault rifles, your carbines, your Gatling guns. Every turn you have, you can use 1 move and 1 action. The action will always be spent on your armaments. So say I want to fire an assault rifle and shoot someone with an assault rifle. I get to roll 4 dice and keep the highest, which means I'm more likely to roll high with this. And the result is always you do 2 damage. You have to be near them, which we'll get to range soon. And it's got burst tag. The kind of trade-off is you roll more dice, do less damage, but you guarantee the hit. And then we have situations where, say we use a rocket launcher, we only have 1 dice to make the hit. We do 4 harm, so we do 4 damage. We can fire it from afar. It has an incendiary tag, which is its own special tag, and it has the stationary. Stationary tag is basically we have to fire this. If we fire this before we move, or if we fire this without moving, we don't have penalties. But if we fire with penalties, I believe we've got to add 1 to the roll, -1 to the roll. I'm not sure we need to go back through this though. But again, less dice, more damage. And that's kind of how the trade-off is. And then we have the backup armaments, which is basically in the events that your weapons get destroyed, you have your trusty shiv, handgun, and revolver. So your mech always has these backup weapons. And then we have our tags. So these were the tags that we had on weapons. So say we have the assault rifle, which has harm 1. When you roll harm 1 whenever 6 is rolled. So basically you're doing 1 extra harm when you're rolling a 6. So handy. Roll a 6, you do 3 more damage. That's kind of the trade-off. But we have stuff like splashed, which basically if an enemy is in the same hex, as the target or in the same area as the target and you harm them and you roll a 6, you deal 1 harm to that extra person. So this is good for, Splash would be good for enemies that are all grouped together. Oh, stationary is +1 die if you haven't moved this turn. So if you haven't moved this turn, that rocket launcher shot that we had would be 2 die, which is handy. And then we have our modular systems. So the modular systems are stuff that we can spend ammo to use. So we will spend an ammo to use these systems. So it's our secondary resource. So again, we have like stuff like rockets. We can either move across the battle move to a far location by spending 1 ammo. We can maybe fire a chain rifle or chain gun to deal 1 harm to 4 enemies or 2 to 2. So that's a very easy way of just getting extra free damage out. But again, you've got to spend ammo to get these out. Or you can maybe do something like spend ammo, and you basically, these work like protocol, so you can do these at any time. So if you think you're going to take 2 damage, you can use a shield generator. So basically, say you fired at someone, but they survived with consequence. You've hit them, they're also going to shoot at you and doing 2 harm. You could spend an ammo to negate that damage by using a shield generator. Because you gain 2 damage, but it's immediately lost by the shields. Or you can do the same with giving an ally. So maybe your ally is going to take that damage. Alright. And you can basically do stuff like that. Or you can use target radar, which basically boosts your sensors, your attacks gain 1 die. But you're limited when using this. Or it might be a case of you have 1 die, but it's limited. Limited usually means you can only use it once per turn. And then you've got your integral systems, which is basically your ultimate skills. So in a case of actuated plating, a soldier could make a defensive protocol and have 1 armor for the remainder of a round. But you're limited, meaning you only can use it once. A lot of these are passives, a lot of these are actives. They're kind of a situation of, you can use these for free. These don't cost ammo. But they might also, so you got your stuff that you can use to deal damage, you can do stuff to negate damage. Stuff that works as passive, so maybe you can gain extra resources. Or say, release a barbed net that drags enemies close. Pick one near anyone, deal 1 harm to everyone close to them, and then bring them next to you, essentially. And that's not got the limited tag on it, so you can do that as often as you want. I'm wondering if that's actually missing a limited tag. And again, we've got system tags. So if you've got the efficient tag, you roll a 4 or a 6, you don't spend ammo, which means you have using something that's efficient, you have a chance of literally it being free. Hold out is if you have 0 ammo, you may use the system by spending 1 tension. So that's an alternative of, you have no ammo to use this ability, you can start spending your tension to use this ability. And limited is you can only use this once per round. So I think you actually do have to use ammo to use these abilities. So you have to use ammo to spend these systems. And again, they've all got their special tags. Non-combat is the tricky part for me, but non-combat scenarios puts the situation for the ace. And it gives us an example of trying to bypass a gate and all the different ways. So you've got a pilot who's in a heavy frame who's just going to try and ram the gate down. You've got someone who's in a light frame who's going to try and jump it. And then you've got the third pilot who's going to just try and hack the gate. And it gives you examples of what happens based on their roles. To say, Heavy tries to ram the gate, it fails, and he may have just broken the gate, and it can't open. The Light mech say he manages to actually jump the gate, but he's tripped his leg and he's going to tumble down. And the third guy actually managed to hack the gate in that kind of stuff. So this was the part that I found quite tricky. Or not so much like that, but how maps are done in this game is a very strange way, but I found the way around it. But again, combat map usage. The map itself is not so much like a grid. It's more of a grid within a grid. So it kind of breaks the map down into 6 hexes, or maybe more, if you want to do a bigger map. But from what I'm aware of, like 6 hexes like this is kind of the go-to. Harm is obviously damage. Range is literally 3 ranges. Close, which is basically enemies that are within the same hex. Near, which are enemies in the next hex over. And far are 2 hexes away. And it gives an example of the ace is here, and then we have enemy mech, enemy mech, enemy mech, enemy mech, enemy mech. So 1 player against 5 mechs in this picture. And then it basically goes through this. And then gives us an example of armor. Armor reduces harm by its value. If you have 1 armor, you take 1 less damage. Shield provides a chance to nullify attacks. For dissection attacks with the piercing keyword. So when shielded, an enemy would be harmed, they roll a d6. If the roll is less or equal to the number of shields, then they take 0 damage. Right, so when a shielded ace or an enemy would be harmed. Oh, it's basically just a way to negate. So you don't actually lose the shield, you might still keep the shield, but lose 1. Oh, so basically if you have shield 2 and you have to roll a d6, if you roll 2 or less, you take 0 damage. But you have to remove 1 shield. And shields normally last until used. So say you have 2 shields, but you now taken damage. You roll a d6, and if you roll a 1 or a 2, you don't take any damage, but now you're on 1 shield. Which means if you want to negate damage on your next turn, if you take damage, you have to roll a 1. But I'm guessing you could be in a situation where you can stack shield. So say you have 4 shield, you can roll. If you roll 4 or less, nullify the damage, but you're on 3 shield then. So I'm guessing going in, because shield stays, you could probably use ammo to stack shield. So you could spend 3 ammo and gain 2 shield per ammo spent and be on 6 ammo. Or 6 shield. And then we have frame damage. So when you're reduced to 0 figure or less, you have to roll on the structure table to determine what your end result is. So again, the consequences of this one is -2 to your maximum health. All your drive rolls are a -1 die. If you take a leg hit, your speed's reduced. And if you want to sprint, you've got to roll a speed roll through it. Sprinting is literally, instead of moving to a close, you have to sprint to get to a far hex, into a far area. And then obviously, like, core hit is, if you want to use an integral system, you want to use a drive roll in addition to spending ammo. So you have basically 3 chances that you can hit 0 3 times by the sounds of this. Oh, basically you have 2 lives, and then if you hit the third one, so if you would be damaged the third time, an ace may decide to take last stand or eject instead of ejection. So basically, if you go down once, you back up, you roll one of these. You go down twice, you roll one of these, you back up, and you go back up to maximum health and maximum tension. So you could probably cheese it if you wanted, if you were really low on tension and turn and you wanted to go back up. But you also have the option of going into last stand, or if you could go down a third time. And basically involve the frame damage and ignore all harm. Which means you ignore damage, you set your tension and ammo to maximum. And any once per round wordings or tag systems afterwards. But the pilot who does this is going to die. So this is basically I'm going to dramatically go out in glorious spectacle. And again, so that's that. So now we're going to move on to turns. So turns, I actually like how this goes. So the ace always has the option to move. You always have 2 actions in a turn that are free and don't use tension. One of them is to move to a near location, sprint to a far location, attack, or integrate with an object. Anything that uses ammo isn't integrated to this, it's considered a free action. So a turn would probably be move to a near location and attack. Or it doesn't say you can't repeat actions, so you could move, or attack. Or attack twice, maybe. But it seems like the idea would be move once, attack once, or attack twice. Again, it says use systems freely at any point during the turn, spending 1 ammo to use. Again, the rolling of 4 or less again garners consequences. And each time an ace or a player has taken their turn, a GM or myself would take a turn to move a enemy depending on the number of allies or players there are. So if there's only 1 player, I will only move 1 NPC on my turn. If there's 2 people, I would get to move 2 NPCs on my turn. But because my NPCs are able to react on enemies' turns with consequences and consequence rolls, it seems to make things fair. And then at the end of a turn, you roll material drops. So basically, this is like rolling loot mid-battle or end of a round. So 1 or 2, they're going to get loot or material drops, which is basically currency. A 3 or a 4, they're going to get a tension drop. So they'll get 1 tension that they have to divide among the group or decide who's getting that tension. And then 5 or 6 is health. So at the end of the turn, depending on how many enemies are defeated or destroyed, you would roll a number of dice to determine these and then distribute accordingly. And then we've got field effects, which is stuff like cover, attacks from far against anyone close in this location, get -1 harm, minimum 0. So cover is obviously just reduced damage. But if they're closer, they roll a d6 to decide. And that cover can go away and get destroyed. So cover will slowly get blown away. So if, say, your mech dives into a building to take cover, that building is going to get destroyed at some point. And then you've got stuff like basically hazardous areas. If you're inside that area, you're going to take 1 harm. Rooftops, I actually quite like. You can spend 1 move in a close to get on the roof. Basically, you have to spend if you're next to an area but you want to jump onto the roof, you'd have to basically spend 1 move to do that. And then you're on the roof. It's considered being 1 extra hex up. So whoever's on the ground is now near you, not close, if you're on that roof. So it's kind of adds a separate dimension, which makes rooftop battles kind of an interesting idea. And then you have bombardment, which is basically an enemy will attack an area in a turn, or maybe a random hex will be decided that is going to get bombarded, and enemies will take damage. And then you have your global effects, which is basically the entire environment. And we now have this. So an example of a round. So, especially for this, we're gonna move to this. So this is a lovely map I have fashioned to show an example of environment and movement. So again, we are in a situation where we have our 1 player who is playing a Vanguard, which is a heavy. And I'll say we'll take from the compendium and we'll put a soldier in as well. So the soldier is probably not going to show up there. I also need to edit his token because he has vision. Vision update. No. Has vision. Nope. Maybe I can give you a token real quick. So token. Give me a second. Soldier. Prototype token. Image. Let's find you a token from the trusty Lancer folder. No, there. Fuck you. I know you do that bullshit to me. Fuck you. Okay. Doop. Doop. That's better. And then prototype token. Vision. Oh, so I'm using front there. I knew this would happen. Prototype token, image. And then I just have to find a separate one for this one. Update token, close this. There we go. So say in this scenario, we have our soldier, our M1 soldier, with his medium build, triple feed motor, and all of his other equipment. And say the objective here is for them to clear all the enemies out due to the fact that the collective want to basically steal all the vehicles from this building here. So this building is full of vehicles that we want to take away from the Republic. So, say turn starts. We have a bunch of legions. We have one Decanus, and then we have a bunch of Velites. It's our turn, and basically what's going to happen now is we are going to fire our rocket launcher. So, reading here that our heavy's rocket launcher is 1 dice, or 2 dice because it has the stationary tag. So we are going to roll 2d6 at this square here on these 2 targets. I'm going to roll 2d6 and keep highest, so KH. And we rolled a 6. So that's gone here and has hit both of these targets with no consequences. So they're both dead. He's then going to move anywhere into this close square. So here. And there's also the situation of the Decanus is near. So he's now going to spend armor. Or spend 1 ammo. And he's going to you know what? Yeah, he can fire. He's going to use his missile battery, so he's going to spend 1 ammo, which puts his ammo to 5. He's going to fire a missile. He's going to fire his missile battery to do 2 to him, which puts him on 1 health, and 1 to him. But because they are the only 2 near, he can't fire the 3rd. So one of the missiles just peters off. But he still has 2 tension. So he's going to try and do more damage to the Decanus. So he's going to spend attention to fire his recoilless rifle at. He's going to fire his recoilless rifle at the Decanus. So it doesn't have a stationary tag, so he's literally rolling 1d6. And he rolls a 3. So he's hit. He's dealt 4 harm, so he's dealt 3 harm. So fortunately, he's destroyed this Decanus, but this Decanus is going to do 2 harm to him as consequence. So he's actually going to take 1 health. So he's going to take -1 because he has 1 armor. But the Decanus is dead. And now he's going to end his turn. Which then brings us to the soldier's turn. The soldier is going to fire 1 shot with his assault rifle, which is 4 dice. So he's going to roll 4 dice. KH, so keep highest. He's going to roll a 5 and destroy him. And then with his second action, he's going to sprint all the way over here. And use his machine gun on these 2 targets here. Or on this legionnaire here. It has piercing, so it will negate armor. It has splash. So he's going to roll 4 dice. Keep highest. And he rolls a 6. So with the splash tag, he gets to do 1 harm to someone as well in that same area. So he's done Gonna deal 1 damage to him. I believe there is also a tag. Alright, which one is it? Yeah, so he's dealt 1 harm to both of them. And he's also then lost attention. So he's gone from he's now on 1 tension. I haven't added actual skills yet, so he spent attention, he's done that, but he wants to keep going. So he wants to make sure that this unit here is obliterated. So he's going to use his chain gun. Which will deal 2 harm to 2 close targets. Which means he'll now spend an ammo, which puts him on 3. And he can guarantee and assure that those 2 targets are eliminated. And then he'll end his turn. I should actually just change this off. 1, 2, 3, 4 targets will end over. But now it's the enemy's turn to attack. So there are 2 allies on. There's 2 aces on the board, so I get to move 2 NPCs. So what I'll do is I'll move a legion here. The legion will deal 2 harm to him, which means he's only going to take 1 harm, which means he's going to be on 9. The Valite is going to deal 1 harm to this target. Number 6. And then it's the end of the turn. So, a very profitable turn, because at the end of the turn, regardless, the heavy frame is going to take 2 vigor, and the medium frame is going to get 1 vigor and 1 tension back. So essentially, they've got back what they've just used in that single turn. We'll say that there's no reinforcements now, but we're going to be rolling drops. So I need to roll 4d6 to determine. So if we look at these dice rolls, they got 1 roll, so it's nothing. A 3 roll, so they got 1 tension and they got 2 vigor. So they're now going. The players will now decide among themselves who's going to get the tension, who's going to get the vigor. They opt for the heavy to get attention back, and vigor to go to the soldier. Or since none of them can actually use the vigor because they didn't take enough health, the vigor is wasted. It would go like that. But it's now their turn again. So heavy will go over there. And again, just use missile batteries to deal 2 harm to the Valetti, which only has 2 health, so that it destroys it. Or he'll actually just opt to destroy these 2. So again, they're beat by his ammo. We'll then use a point defense cannon. But you can't because they're not in close. They're in near. So again, you probably use the recurless rifle on the Legionnaire. So roll 1. He rolls a 2, so he rolls really bad. If he wanted to, and he will, he'll spend attention to reroll. So he spent attention to reroll the roll to roll a 6 and destroys that target. But then, in order to save some resources for a future fight, they'll let him move up and just assault rifle shot. So 4d6, keep highest, roll, gets a 5, he's dead. And again, that's 2 rounds. That's this mission complete. Yay. So we could say that now And again, I haven't played a big fight because I haven't prepared a big fight, but I'm using this as an example. They've now cleared the board. Usually in situations like this, reinforcements would arrive. So more enemies would arrive. And the idea is you're putting enough enemies to either cover the losses of what's been lost, or figure out a set amount. But say, for example, I will do this as an example. We have a second mission where there is another soldier, and he has encountered a group of scouts, and basically would say that scene's done. Those 2 rounds, those 2 players are done, but time's still flowing. It's not the end of the mission. They have other missions. So maybe player 3 is currently doing this mission where he's got to fight these 4 or these 6 on his own. And but say he manages to do this, but he's incredibly worse for wear, but he's not down and out. But he gets to now regroup with these guys for the final mission, which is everyone coming in full force. So I think that's kind of the idea of how you go about matches or rounds. Is kind of, you can split things into scenes or split things into certain situations. You don't overwhelm your allies, or you don't overwhelm your players, but you could split things. You could split things out. You could split your players up into ways that your players are comfortable. So you could maybe say there's 3 objectives, but the 2 objectives you have to do separate. The 3rd objective you can do as a group, and you can do things like that. That's my idea of how to run. But again, looking at the map, this is my preferred way of making the maps now. So I would make maps in Dungeon Draft with larger hexes, but the hexes don't matter. The hexes basically determine whether or not near. So everything in this square is close. Everything in these squares are near. Everything a square further is far. And obviously we have a rooftop here. So say he moves here and then uses attention to move onto the roof. He's now on the roof. Or say I have someone who's going to move far and he's in here. He's in cover. If enemies take a shot at him, they could destroy the cover, which also destroys the assets. Which, yeah, won't actually impact the mission as long as the machinery is fine or there is something recoverable. But it could actually cost a bit. And that's something to consider. But yeah, this is Apocalypse Frame, a mech simulated TTRPG by using Lumen Engine, and is made by Binary Star Games. And you can find it on itch.io. So, yay! This is the first one of these I've done, and I've been kind of... Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I actually quite like it, because again, how long have I been talking for? About an hour. Even though it's totally just been me to myself, I could probably upload this to YouTube. And that would be something that would be interesting. If people are interested in that kind of thing. But I'm honestly quite happy with how that's gone. But again, I do want to do TTRPGs in future. So that is something I would want to do. So I'll split this up into its own VOD. Maybe. But for now, I'm going to take a short break, and then I'm going to swap to some Splinter Cell Chaos Fury. How about that, folks? Also, I hope everyone's enjoying the new music. I'm literally just found some more stream safe stuff on Spotify, and it's kind of just been working out for me. So again, now we've had the same song on loop for about an hour. Just bear with me. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day, and I shall see you all in about 5-6 minutes and I go and get everything else sorted out. But meh, we can just hide the screen. Oh, never mind. We're still going to be using display capture, so it doesn't matter what I do.